Massed pilgrims climbed Saudi Arabia's Mount Arafat on Monday, July 20th, to pray and repent in the climax of this year's hajj, the smallest in modern times due to the coronavirus pandemic. A tight security cordon was erected all around the foot of the rocky hill outside Mecca, also known as Jabal al-Rahma, or the Mount of Mercy, for the high point of the annual ritual. But this year, security and military forces were also on full alert all across the kingdom for fear of something that could shake the throne of Al Saud: planned nationwide protests.
الحادث اللي حدث مؤلم جدا لجميع السعوديين.
The calls for protest were made via Twitter by Saudi users who used an Arabic hashtag meaning Arafat Day protest. 2 days before the Arafat Day, prominent Saudi opposition activist Ali Al-Ahmed tweeted, "Less than 48 hours to go before the start of nationwide protests, activists started targeting murals of Saudi clan leaders, King Salman and his son MBS." Protesters were supposed to denounce innumerable injustices in society, demand the release of political prisoners, and call for an end to the rule of terror. The peaceful protests, however, didn't happen that day, a telltale sign of what's really going on inside the kingdom, despite all the promises about social reforms and freedom.
I'm not surprised that people didn't come out because of the repressive system of the Saudi regime, the way that they act towards any critics, any political activists, any human rights activists, anybody that speaks out, anything that is not what the regime wants to hear, or something that is opposing to some of their laws or some of their ways, right ahead, they're obviously going to be arrested, they're going to be tortured, they're going to be facing, courts that are actually, they're like, they're not really public to anybody to know what really is happening inside these courts.
In the heat of the uprisings that rocked the Arab world, Saudi people took to the streets calling for basic rights in areas such as Samta, Jeddah, and Jazan and Khatif. The Saudi authorities clamped down on the protesters and deployed military convoys to neighboring Bahrain to help Manama crack down on protests of the same kind. Since then, and especially after the rise of Mohammed bin Salman, Riyadh has arrested and executed a large number of political dissidents under the pretext of fighting terrorism, starting a new era of terror in the kingdom.
As a human rights organization here in Canada, Canadian Defenders for Human Rights, is always meeting with opposition members that are Saudi that come out here and apply for refugee status, and that they're opposing to a lot of the Saudi laws and the suppressive laws that they have over there. And when we try to speak with them and try to see how we can have an interview with them, they're always scared of the backlash of their family and relatives being arrested or harassed or tortured or interrogated, things like that. So this is the way the Saudi regime really operates. They're very intolerant.
Saudi authorities are now following their repressive policies through retroactive arrests against those expressing their opinions years ago. They've already begun searching through social media accounts to find old anti-Al Saud publications. Activist Lushain al-Daghestani, for example, was arrested in early April 2021 for posting tweets dating back to 2013 in which she had called for improved economic and social conditions. For a month or so since her detention, she was still unaccounted for. In a similar case, activist Mohammed Al-Fawzan, known as Abu Nura, was arrested in April 2020 for criticizing King Abdullah 11 years earlier in 2009. Critics say this is just the tip of the proverbial iceberg. In fact, the Saudis have been using state-of-the-art spyware to hack activists and dissidents' cell phones. Recently, the Washington Post released an investigation that shows Saudi Arabia is a major client of the Israeli spyware Pegasus.
How they suppressed the people there, how they arrested people everywhere, how they shot people and killed people, how they had unfair trials, how they killed Sheikh Nimr, for instance, and they didn't even give him a burial. They didn't have it, let his family even have that. So this is just techniques and tactics to scare the public and scare their society. But at the end of the day, there will be people that will rise up at the right time. You know, it's just a matter of time. It's going to happen. You know what I mean? There's a lot of problems economically inside the country. And people are not satisfied. We can see that, right? And so many of the scholars were put in prison for speaking out against certain moral corruption, things like that was spreading inside Saudi Arabia.
By many credible accounts, there are more than 100 female activists behind bars inside the kingdom. This is in stark contrast to what the Crown Prince claims about women's rights in Saudi Arabia. The fact is, despite his complete control of the local courts, bin Salman has been accused of many crimes in international courts by a host of opponents and human rights defenders. Saudi de facto leader is by far the prince with the most number of lawsuits in the history of the kingdom. For instance, according to a lawsuit filed in Germany through the international organization Reporters Without Borders, bin Salman is accused of systematically persecuting 34 media workers and journalists, and above all, accused of crimes against humanity.
The people don't have a right to say anything. The people don't have a right to have the right people in power to govern their country and manage their country. The people are dominated by a family, one family. You know, there's no country in the world that is named under a family, or a tribe. You know, this is the only country in the world that is called that. That's why it's called Saudi Arabia. Saudi comes from Al Saud.
In one of the latest cases, the Crown Prince is accused of putting former Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Nayef under house arrest and confiscating his assets, which prevented him from fulfilling obligations on an oil project. Bin Nayef's advisor, Saad al-Jabri, also litigated one of the most challenging cases against bin Salman, accusing him of attempts to assassinate him. Under a lawsuit filed by al-Jabri, a U.S. court ordered the summons of bin Salman along with 9 others in the Tiger Squad of assassinations, a death squad under the direct command of bin Salman.
This is a way to keep the system for him going. He's caught up in wars in different countries such as Yemen and so on, and the way to keep things silent is by silencing any opposition views, any political views, even his own family members that rose up against him when he claimed power, and they put him in position because they changed the whole system of how it can be inherited, the power, right? Usually it goes to the brother of the king, and this time they put him as the crown prince. So a lot of people were upset inside the family, and he arrested most of the family members that were speaking out or were opposing, or he felt they were some kind of danger.
The fact is, after entering the line of succession 6 years ago, bin Salman tried to mute any dissenting voice inside and if able outside Saudi Arabia. He launched waves of arrests targeting a wide range of people, from conservative clerics to women's rights activists to intellectuals and political dissidents who had opinions different about social, economic, or foreign policies. It is too soon to say if bin Salman could finally turn the Saudi kingdom into a modern society, but there is no doubt that he has already managed to turn Saudi Arabia into a big prison where people are not even free enough to express their peaceful opinions.
الحادث مؤلم جدا لجميع السعوديين.